let's start at the beginning.
Okay, so To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Were you aware that Alan had produced that film?
Of course, yes. I was very moved by the book, so I was well tucked into the experience and loved the movie, admired the Gregory Peck deeply, and that whole movie just. I'm not a student of film. I come from a different direction to this job. And I was more or less a civilian when I saw that movie. But
Were you about 20 years old, I think, 1962 around? Is that when you saw it in the theater?
I think I saw it in a theater when I was about 20 years old. And that's probably, that's 1962 or something like that. Yeah. You're good at this.
Did it have a good impression on you? But did it have a major impression on you? Because I know you met Alan later in life, but
I met Alan later in life, and all I really knew about him was his association with Mockingbird, which of course he produced, and did not direct. But it was, I'd been making movies for a while, and different kinds of movies, all kinds of movies actually, and when I got a chance to become involved with Alan on Presumed Innocent, I knew something about him. I met him in his uniquely New York office, about off of 7th Avenue on 58th or something like that. And I'd never. I thought I might have wandered into some psychiatrist's office instead of a movie director. I'd never seen anybody relate that way to the people that might end up working for him. I don't mean that he was like a psychiatrist. I just meant that he was the most, the gentlest, most intellectual person I had met, next to Sidney Pollack maybe in my life.
That makes sense. It's a good parallel because people equate Sidney, people equate Mike Nichols with Alan.
And Mike, the three of those guys. I never knew Sidney Lumet, who probably belongs in that company as well, and Elia Kazan and others. But I got a chance to work with Alan and with Mike and with Sidney, each of them 2 times. And they were the best of times. And 9 years later, maybe not so much, when we did the second film together, The Devil's Own.
When you first got the call about this film, obviously, most people interview you about more iconic roles like Star Wars or Indiana Jones, but do you more embrace these type of conversations where you're talking about roles that maybe meant a little more to you as far as your acting?
No, I don't really embrace these situations at all under any circumstances, and I don't care whether it's about an Indiana Jones or Star Wars movie or some of my earlier, funnier work, to steal a phrase from Woody Allen. But or from the Woody Allen story about liking his earlier work. But I digress. But you can cut that.
Yeah.
So there were these guys. The ones I knew were Alan and Mike and Sidney, and they were intellectual giants. They were the smartest people I'd ever met in my life. They were a little bit complicated, but always, I mean, the experience, even if nothing ever made it out of the lab to an audience, were significant events in my beginning, in my life. They were formative, and maybe I was a little late forming, gelling, but they helped me. They helped me by giving me unearned confidence, not in a showy way, but that it wasn't necessary to do the parts, the kind of things I wasn't sort of naturally adapted to. I never think about performance very much. It just happens to me, and I guess I'm, and some people don't like that, and some people encourage it, and those are the guys I got along with best.
Would you say that Alan, as a unique director, apart from the other two, what set him apart from Sidney and Mike, or were they that similar? I don't want to obviously go into favorites, but we're talking about Alan here. I just want
No, they're basically. I mean, there are so many different kinds of talents making movies, and they're all great, and I love it all. I really love it. It's the best job in the world, but there's something about these well-worn, intellectually curious men, and in fact they have had experiences, and they grew up in a world that I never knew, because I was first, I just came in sideways to the whole thing.
But during the 70s, while you were making the other films, were you looking at Clute? Were you looking at Parallax View? Were you watching Alan's work at that point? Were you aware of him?
Oh, I was aware of him, but I didn't go to movies on purpose. It was, I kind of shied away from movies because I thought I would see really good work by good actors, and it would make me nervous.
Nervous because you weren't on the right trajectory?
No, I can't talk about it. I can't actually tell you anything straight and honest about it. It's just, I didn't go to movies very much. And I started going to movies when I was in college mostly. I'm pretty old. I went to Saturday matinees and saw cowboy and Indian movies and Gene Autry movies and Bambi, and then I stopped going to movies till I was in college, and there was a theater in town where you could ask a girl to go sit in the dark with you and watch a French movie, which seemed like a good idea at the time. And then I started sort of paying attention to movies a little bit. And then when I started acting, I was working in television, and I was under contract to Columbia Pictures, then Universal, and blah, blah, blah. This is too much about me. Let's talk about Alan.
So, when Presumed Innocent came along,
yeah,
I believe that a script was sent to you, and then Alan flew out to Jackson Hole to talk to you about it.
I think I read the book first. I think Alan asked me to read the book, or somebody asked me to read the book, and then I don't really remember. I do remember that Alan and I met in New York, or I'm sorry, I was living here part of the time in those days, and I think I met him here. I read the book. Then I had been, maybe I was in Wyoming, and he came out to see me in Wyoming, and we spent a couple days.
Were you
Talking
resistant
about
to the role at first?
No, not at all. I don't think so. I don't remember any resistance at all. I thought it was a wonderful opportunity. I loved Scott Turow's precision of his storytelling and the language and the glimpse into the law that was very much a part of the story. It was a story about a man and his wife, and the man's infidelity and indiscretion, and the moral consequences of that. But it was a lot about the law as well, and so it was one of the things I've always liked about acting was the opportunity to live other lives, to learn about things. And so I went to visit Scott in Chicago, where I grew up in Chicago. So I went back and spent an evening with Scott in his home and his wife, and we had dinner, I think, at home. And I really enjoyed him, and I knew he was going to be involved in it. And anyway, somehow I got the deal, and we made it became real.
Why do you think Alan was attracted to the work? Was it the same attraction with going to the inner realms of character, the moral ambiguities of...
No, I think Alan was always interested in moral complication, always interested in the contest between the better part of our natures and the not so much so. And the good, bad, and the ugly were very interesting to both of us. And so eventually I went off to Detroit to do some research.
Did Alan go with you to some trial?
No, I don't think we went to a trial. I didn't go to a trial because I'd seen trials. I had journalist friends when I was in Los Angeles, during the SLA, Patty Hearst stuff, and I'd been to a lot of trials, and I'd listened to testimonies of people in trials and stuff. And I used to go with my journalist friend, a guy named Barry Farrell. And but what I wanted to see was what a guy like this does every day, what a prosecuting attorney who's working homicide cases in Detroit. What's the character, the nature, what's the fabric of his life? And so, I did what he would have done. There's something called a Monday morning roundup. Maybe there's another phrase for it that I'm not remembering, but it includes attending a very graphic and visceral event, which is the review of the homicides, starting with the corpses of the victims in a basement in someplace in Detroit, where coroners make an initial assessment whether or not they had arrived on the scene of the crime. But each body was then reviewed on Monday morning, and there's a row of gurneys and sheeted bodies, and the uncovering of the corpse, and the look at the top, and then there was a guy called a flopper, whose job was to turn the bodies over. And this was Rusty Savage's world. And then you'd sit in with the doctors, and they'd go through the medical records, and a bunch of 6 doctors or coroners in a room, and they'd say, this one we're going to spend time, you're going to follow up on this, that, and the other thing, and they were under the direction of the district attorney and his investigator.
You've commented before that you and Alan were well suited for one another on set in the way you worked and your methods. Describe why that was.
Well, I don't know that I'd presume to say why we were well suited for each other, but we understood, we were comfortable with each other in a way that was really, for me, very special. And a lot of actors I know have talked about Alan's, but in a very real way, I talk about Alan and Sidney and Mike, and they all had that.
We talked to the screenwriter Kamen. We interviewed him about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the winemaking screenwriter.
Very rich screenwriter. But he was saying that he classified those guys as working directors.
Yeah, they're working directors, and they let us work. They made us work. We had, well, first of all, the story of why we were working the way we were working on Devil's Own is a very long and complicated story, and I'm sure there are many true versions of the story from a different point of view, but let's finish up Presumed Innocent before we start talking about.
Well, the only thing I want to ask is
Own.
2 more thoughts on Presumed Innocent.
Yeah.
So we spoke to Brian Dennehy up in Connecticut.
Yeah.
He was saying how, because I asked him, did you think working with Harrison, coming off of the roles people were familiar with him, was this a risk for him to take this on? And do you think that he, was expressing that on set? Was it in the performance? Because you weren't used to seeing Harrison that way. Was it a risk, do you think, taking on this role at that point in your career?
No, not at all. Not at all. I never felt risk about anything I ever did. That's how dumb I am. All I wanted that drew notice was, I told Alan, I want this guy. I don't want, and you got to understand this is in context. I said, I don't want to be cute. I want to cut my hair off. I want to neglect anything that might make me attractive, or that you might think was an expression of ego invested in, because I was going to have an affair with a beautiful woman in the movie, and that's what it was about. And I didn't want to earn that in a movie star way. I wanted the story to tell how that happened, because then it gave power to the story, and it was not about being a movie star thing. And so most of the reviews were about my fucking hair. That why did this guy get such a dumb haircut? Because the guy I was playing never even thought about it. He was busy, and he didn't think about his hair, and he didn't expect to be in a movie. But he sure did find himself in one. Mm. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to do. All I've ever wanted to do is help smart people tell stories and have the opportunity to live other lives and have an emotional experience, a little emotional exercise, which is what I want to bring to an audience.
Alan tested the film before it was released.
Ooh, yeah, I might have been there, but sometimes I wasn't.
There was a survey question, and they said, do you do you believe that, as you're watching it, do you believe Harrison could have done this act, this murder? And they said yes. And then the second question was, does that make you not like him? And they said no, we still like him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what you're fighting, the power of that image that you had.
No. I don't. I'm not thinking that. I don't
I know
think
you're not thinking that.
That's not a fight.
Right.
That's an advantage, because they're not saying that they like him because they remember me from other movies. They're saying, I believe. They're saying, do you believe that he could have done this? And they say, yeah, I fucking watched this happen. I was there. I emotionally understand what happened to him because you made a movie which invited me as an audience to experience the story, not tell. You know, there's the note I make in my margins all the time is talk story. You're talking about the story. Let's just get back to showing, not telling. And the other note I made, used to make and still make, I just discovered as I went back and looked on Google and hearing about Alan, was that I make the notation NGE in the margins and underline the part I don't like. And I just realized that Alan did that, and NGE stands for not good enough. Show me better. Let's figure out how to do this better.
And a lot of the times you would say, let's just erase the dialogue because I can show it in my face.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not talk about it. Let's just do it. But I've lost the thread. What were we talking about? We're talking about, so the audience survey question number 1. Do you believe that this character might have done it? Or, see, that's where the whole thing goes twisty, because they're saying, do you believe Harrison Ford could have done this? But I'm not
Right.
Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford would never cut his hair like that, except for money, which I've done a couple times. But do you believe Harrison Ford could do this? Yes. And then what was the second question? But
Do you still like him?
do you still like him? They're not talking about Harrison Ford. They're talking about Rusty Savage. Do you still like Rusty Savage? Because you think he might have killed somebody. And isn't it because you feel you know him? You feel emotionally consistent with him? And that's the art of the deal. Excuse me for saying something so vulgar. But that's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Come with me, feel what I'm feeling, and then tell me where we are. You know, that's the deal.
And that's your burden as an actor, taking him on that emotion.
That's not my burden. That's the opportunity of a lifetime. That's really living the life of that character. That's cinema gold. I don't mean that it came out finally to be that. It's raw ore going in, and then people are real good at. First thing you do is you cut out all the shitty parts, right? And then if you got anything left, you string it together, right? And one of the editors on was it Presumed Innocent? Was it Dennis Virkler that worked on Presumed Innocent, or did he work on The Devil's Own? I can't remember, but a great editor that. I mean, there are many great editors, and each of these great directors had great editors that they worked with a lot. But Dennis Virkler did really remarkable sort of converting the raw material of The Fugitive into a thumping, beating heart.
Yeah.
But he worked on one of the other of the two movies that Alan and I did together.
You said that Alan approached films from an intellectual side rather than a visceral side. It didn't inform him first, the visceral side. It's really the intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that was true in both of your experiences there?
Yeah, I think oh yes, I do. But he valued the visceral. He recognized it for its storytelling value, and he loved actors because he watched them have this experience.
Did he respect the vulnerability that's within actors? That place that I think a lot of people don't respect so much. That you have
Alan
to
respected everybody on the set. He was a real gentleman.
So the loss that obviously happened, his sudden passing, how did you hear about it?
I can't remember. Probably on the news.
Tom Brokaw, I think, reported it at 6:30 that night. We interviewed him about it, and he got broken up on the air, and he was feeling it the same way.
Just came back.
I mean, this is 20 years.
And Alan was only 70. Sucks. Sucks for Alan. Sucks for Anna. Sucks for me.
You wanted to work with him again?
I would have done it in a New York minute.